I don't want to gloat necessarily, but it's like I told you so. Basically, I played this game on release, but the title of this is Capcom sets an example of how to phase out a dying game with Exoprimal. Exoprimal released last year, yo. A live service game they released last year, and leading up to the release of the game, it was interesting. It had an interesting premise, and it was wild, and I was interested in it. And as we got closer to release, I started noticing that it was a cash grab game. I was quite sure of it. And on release, I confirmed those notions. So, it's one of those situations where it felt really bad to see a game like this come out, as honestly the core mechanics of the gameplay felt pretty decent, stuff like that, but there was a lot about it that just didn't make sense. It didn't flow very well. It was they were gatekeeping a lot of content in it. It was obvious there was so much monetization in it, and the game was almost a AAA price tag. You know, quite possibly fair. The game was almost a AAA price tag, and I'll say this time and time again. You see a game come out like this that, you know, these live service titles, and they're trying to act like they're building them for longevity. They trying to act like, you know, I'll give you another example, something like Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Yeah. They want to try and act like these games are being built for the long haul, but they're introducing them at a AAA price point. That is one of the first indications that they are not worried about building a player base. And one of the first things that you need to have for a game built around longevity is player base. If nobody's in your game, you're not going to have anything to build off of, right? If you don't have anybody in your game experiencing it and enjoying the content or anything, you don't have anything to build off of. There's nothing to continue to build because you're not building it for anybody, right? So I'll tell you, I say this time and time again, if you've got a live service game coming out and it's being pushed at a close to or at AAA price tag, it's a pretty safe bet they are trying to recoup development cost, and it's going to die fairly quickly. And it's not ultimately probably going to be very good content-wise. It might feel okay, but just like with Exoprimal, it gets real repetitive, you know? And I think it's just one of those situations that keeps repeating itself in the video gaming industry right now. It was pretty quick. So what I did, I played this on Game Pass. Luckily enough, this came out on Game Pass. I played it on Game Pass, and it absolutely confirmed my notion after playing this for a couple of days that it was a cash grab. There was just so much monetization in a game that they were pushing. I think it was what, $50 or $60. It was really close to a AAA price tag, if it wasn't $70. I can't remember exactly, but it was really gross to see it. It was really gross to see it. There were a few things in the game that you could grind out, but a lot of it was just focused on monetization. And there was really weird stuff in the game, like you had to play for a long time, it felt like, initially to unlock different game modes and stuff, which was odd. The game was built mechanically very weird. The gameplay didn't feel terrible, but it didn't feel great either, and it was quite obvious what this was. They were trying to get as much money off of retail sales as they could, and they were trying to get as much money off of in-game monetization sales as they could, and it didn't come off as a game that was going to last very long. And here we are, right? Capcom sets an example of how to phase out a dying game with Exoprimal. This game came out when? I didn't mean to do that. Hold on, my bad. Exoprimal. Well, it's down to $20 right now because it's on sale for 67% off. This game came out a year ago, July 13th of 2023. It came out a year ago, and it's being phased out, guys. It was a $60 game, or the deluxe edition was $70. and you can see all 53 DLC that they have for it right now. You see all this? Hold on. Look at this. Look at all this DLC. A couple of these are free. Most of them are paid, though. All the DLC for this game also, $261. And it's quite obvious what this was. So, last week Capcom silently ended all planned content for its dinosaur hunting, exosuit wearing game Exoprimal. After almost a year, not even yet, but almost a year since its initial release, Exoprimal's first season will return on July 11th, 2024, and begin cycling its seasons on the first of each month, while this effectively puts one of Capcom's newest IPs on life support. It maintains the game in a playable state and honors its remaining players. What will happen to it? As mentioned, Exoprimal's 4 seasons of content will begin rotating at the start of each new month. What's interesting is that progress for each season will remain the same. Say a player completes only 30 out of Season 1's 50 Battle Pass tiers this coming July, that person retains their Battle Pass progress once the Season 1 returns in November. Premium tiers work similarly, as they are only valid for their corresponding seasons. To make things simpler for Exoprimal's remaining players, Capcom plans to release a discounted set of premium passes for all 4 seasons. On top of the returning seasons, Capcom will also be rotating weekly campaigns and missions every month. Savage Gauntlets, Double Experience campaigns, and the limited Monster Hunter and Mega Man collaboration events will be returning to add unique ways to play every month. Likewise, limited time cosmetics like the Valentine's Day themed chocolate suit and Happy Anniversary charm will be available during their associated events and holidays. This recurring content is set against the backdrop of Exoprimal retaining its online servers and gameplay modes. Exoprimal did not have very high player counts from the start, so the game's ability to fill in lobbies with bots, AI-controlled exofighters, will be preserved so that players can complete the main campaign and engage in multiplayer. Look at this. Let me read this real quick from this author. It's always sad to see a game slowly die before it's had the chance to prove itself. It had the chance to prove itself. It did. What people found out was that this was a game that had potential, but what Capcom did was turned it into something that wasn't worth playing. It had potential. They had a core here of something that could have been decent, could have been something that brought people in to play it and have fun with. But what they did was they turned it into something that was just they tried to make it a quick cash grab. And so to say that it didn't have the chance to prove itself, it did. It proved itself for what it was and what Capcom wanted it to be. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Yeah. But that is the nature of live service games, as they require a lot of time and effort from both players and developers. There are a lot of keys in creating live service games to be sustainable and good, and there are tried and true examples of how to do live service games very well. Yeah. And a lot of these big companies don't know how to do it because all they see are how can we implement as many ways to put dollar signs in the game as possible. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work for most of us gamers. You know what I mean? So that's why a lot of this kind of stuff, I mean, look at what most people are saying about a new live service game right now and something like The First Descendant. It's not that the game's developed poorly. It's not that the mechanics aren't there. The combat feels decent. The game looks good. The monetization is disgusting. But there's things about the gameplay in it that are lacking. It's repetitive. There's things about it that get boring. there's a core there that could have been decent. But what they focused on for the first Descendant, first and foremost, really was monetization. You can see it, right? So instead of focusing on how to create a game that was going to be very, very engaging for the long haul and maintain a high player base, and then focus on, what can we implement to make this profitable for us as a free-to-play game with a high player base, they did it backwards. They were like, okay, we've got something decent here of a core gameplay wise. Hopefully it'll sustain player base. Let's find out as many ways as possible to implement as much monetization on a scummy level as possible, and we'll see how it goes. It doesn't work like that, man. And this is just another example. So to say something like, sad to see a game slowly die before it's had the chance to prove. Oh, it proved itself. It absolutely proved itself. It proved itself to be exactly what Capcom wanted it to be, okay? It's unfortunate, but this is not anything outside of the norm of what we see from a lot of these bigger game developers nowadays. Nexon with the first Descendant, or, it's not looking good for them right now. We'll see. It's early, but it's not looking great. At 51% positive on Steam. Exoprimal's dying a year, not even a year yet after the release. Suicide Squad, we all know that game was just going to be DOA, right? And it was. It was so obvious, The list goes on and on and on, man,